From Pacifica, this is Democracy Now! Broadcasting live from Copenhagen. It's Climate Countdown.
We believe in the right of people to protest or to dissent, and I can't personally understand where we are kept out of the conference.
Crackdown at the UN Climate Summit. Mainstream environmental groups are kicked out of the Bella Center as world leaders begin talks. Outside on the streets, thousands march on the Bella Center to set up a people's assembly to call for climate justice. And inside the summit, hundreds stage a walkout.
When I say climate, you say justice. Climate! Justice! Climate! Justice! When I say reclaim, you say power. Reclaim!
All that and more coming up. Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. We're broadcasting live from Copenhagen. Hundreds of arrests have been made here in Copenhagen as climate justice advocates attempt a massive act of civil disobedience to disrupt the COP15 talks. Earlier today, Danish police detained people around the city who are among the thousands making their way to the Bella Center for the Reclaim Power action. Organizers had vowed to stage a people's assembly inside the summit to amplify calls for climate justice. As part of the action, hundreds of summit delegates and attendees marched through the Bella Center halls to join the protesters outside. The police have used pepper spray and batons against protesters as they converged on the site. The People's Assembly is now taking place on a street near the Bella Center with hundreds of people in attendance. In what could have been a preemptive move against the delegates' walkout, several major environmental groups were barred from the climate summit earlier today. The group, including Friends of the Earth International, Avaz, and Tick Tick Tick, say their accreditation was revoked without explanation. Around 50 people held a sit-in near a security checkpoint in response. Today's arrests are the latest in a massive crackdown on climate justice activists. On Tuesday, a key organizer behind the Reclaim Power action was arrested as he left the Bella Center. The organizer, Tadzio Müller, was jailed overnight without charge. Last week, Müller spoke to Current TV about the Danish police crackdown.
This is simply par for the course. I mean, this is what we've come to expect from police forces around the world when these big protests happen. And we, the Network Climate Justice Action, have been saying now for over a year that we are planning actions of civil disobedience. So in that sense, it is absolutely unsurprising what the police are doing. And while, of course, we condemn it, we also don't want to get caught in a situation where all we talk about is the police's violation of our civil liberties, and no doubt those violations have occurred. We are really much more interested in talking about our different agenda for climate politics, and that we're absolutely on track to achieve some of the most amazing actions in the global north, we hope, since the WTO protest in Seattle.
World leaders are arriving in Copenhagen as the climate summit formally enters high-level talks. On Tuesday, U.S. climate negotiator Todd Stearns said he foresees no change in President Obama's offer to cut emissions by 17% of 2005 levels. The rest of the world is using 1990 levels. The proposal has been widely criticized because it amounts to just a 4% cut when adopting the 1990 standard.
I'm not anticipating any change in the mitigation commitment. I think that's something that the President announced just, I don't know, I guess it was a couple of weeks ago. And so I don't think there's going to be a change in that commitment.
Stern also renewed his opposition to the payment of climate reparations to poorer countries most affected by global warming.
We fully recognize that our historic role in putting emissions up in the atmosphere, and we also fully recognize our responsibility to be part of an overall global effort to help poorer countries, both with regard to the need to adapt to the impacts of climate change and the need to help them develop on a sustainable path, which at this point in our collective history means low carbon path. Reparations, to me, conveys a sense of culpability, guilt, that kind of thing. And I don't think that that's a legitimate way to look at it.
Canada, meanwhile, has acknowledged it's drafted a secret plan that would exempt its largest polluters from meeting greenhouse gas reductions. A leaked proposal suggests Canada allow its oil and gas industry to cut emissions by 15 megatons instead of the 48 megatons the Conservative government has proposed. We'll have more from Copenhagen after headlines. On Capitol Hill, healthcare reform negotiations are intensifying as Senate Democrats pursue the 60-vote threshold needed to avoid a Republican filibuster. President Obama emerged from a meeting with Democratic senators Tuesday to call for the bill's passage before the Christmas holiday.
I am absolutely confident that if the American people know what's in this bill, and if the Senate knows what's in this bill, that this is going to pass, because it's right for America. And I'm feeling cautiously optimistic that we can get this done and start rolling up our sleeves and getting to work improving the lives of the American people.
Democrats are expected to finalize a significant revision to the measure to appease independent Senator Joseph Lieberman. On Sunday, Lieberman announced he would oppose the health care bill unless Democrats removed a provision lowering the age of Medicare eligibility to 55. The Medicare expansion had been added in exchange for meeting the demands of senators, including Lieberman, who have opposed the public option. On Tuesday, Lieberman said he's now confident both the Medicare expansion and the public option have been abandoned.
If, as appears to be happening, the so-called public option government-run insurance program is out, and the Medicare buy-in, which I thought would jeopardize Medicare, cost taxpayers billions of dollars over the long haul, increase our deficit, is out, and there's no other attempts to bring things like that in, then I'm going to be in a position where I can say, I'm getting toward that position where I can say what I wanted to say all along, that I'm ready to vote for health care reform.
Despite the removal of the public option and Medicare expansion, no progressive senators have said whether they'll switch their vote in protest. In an interview with Vermont Public Radio, former Vermont Governor Howard Dean came out against the Senate bill.
Honestly, the best thing to do right now is kill the Senate bill and go back to the House and start the reconciliation process, where you only need 51 votes, and it'd be a much simpler bill. I mean, the vast majority of Americans want the choices. They want real choices. They don't have them in this bill. This is not health care reform, and it's not close to health care reform.
As Democrats privately negotiate how extensively they'll abandon public health care, the Senate continues to vote on a series of key amendments. On Tuesday, the Senate failed to pass an amendment that would have made it easier for Americans to purchase cheaper FDA-approved prescription drugs abroad. The final vote was 51 to 48, 9 short of the 60 needed to overcome a filibuster. 30 Democrats voted against the proposal. Supporters say it would have saved U.S. consumers around $80 billion over the next decade. The Obama administration had also opposed the measure. Meanwhile, the Senate's poised to open debate today on an amendment from independent Senator Bernie Sanders to establish a single-payer universal health care system. Discussion of the Sanders amendment will mark the first time a single-payer health care proposal has ever been debated on the Senate floor. In other news from Washington, the House has voted to authorize a new round of sanctions targeting Iran. The measure would allow President Obama to punish foreign companies that help provide Iran with fuel. The final vote was 412 to 12. The Obama administration has confirmed plans for the eventual transfer of dozens of Guantanamo prisoners to a prison in Illinois. On Tuesday, the White House said it would purchase the Thompson Correctional Center as part of its effort to close Guantanamo. Some prisoners will face trial by military commissions, while others will remain jailed without charge. In response, some critics have already dubbed the prison Guantanamo North. In a statement, Anthony Romero of the American Civil Liberties Union said, quote, "Shutting down Guantanamo will be nothing more than a symbolic gesture if we continue its lawless policies on shore." Democratic Congressmember Luis Gutierrez has unveiled a new immigration reform bill that would provide a path for immigrant workers to get documented status. Workers would have to meet several conditions, including proof of employment, payment of a $500 fine, English fluency, and a criminal background check.